Did you know that the dollar could be on the brink of losing its 80-year reign? Right now, the world's financial giants are quietly laying the groundwork for a historic shift in global currency. And if you're holding silver, gold, or any U.S. dollar-backed assets, you might be looking at a financial windfall, or you could be caught completely off guard. This isn't just some conspiracy theory. It's happening right now, and it could change everything. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why gold is hitting all-time highs, why silver is being suppressed, and how central banks are setting the stage for a global currency reset that could upend the entire financial system. Stick around because 2026 might just be the year everything changes. Here's where things get really interesting. While the world was fixated on the recent silver crash, something much bigger was happening behind the scenes. Central banks, including the US, China, and Russia, have been making moves to prepare for a global currency reset. You might not have noticed it yet, but the writing is already on the wall. The US dollar's reign as the world's reserve currency, one that's lasted for over 80 years, is beginning to slowly unravel. This isn't a random fluctuation in the market. It's part of a larger, deliberate shift. So why does this matter to you? It's simple. The wealth of nations is shifting. A $12 trillion question is on the line, and depending on how you position yourself, this could either make you a fortune or leave you completely exposed. But here's the part nobody's talking about. This transition could make or break your financial future. Are you prepared? How many people do you know who are actively getting ready for what's coming? And if you think this is just another market cycle, think again. The game is changing, and fast. Let me break it down for you. The most obvious evidence we're seeing right now is gold hitting all-time highs. Gold isn't just soaring because retail investors like you and me are buying it. No, it's central banks driving this surge. Banks like China, Russia, and India are stacking up gold reserves at an unprecedented rate. In fact, we're talking about 1,000 tons of gold being bought every year, an amount that hasn't been seen since the 1960s. That's right, the last time central banks bought gold this aggressively, the entire global financial system collapsed. Now, why are they buying gold? It's not because they think it's shiny or an investment opportunity. They're doing it because they know something's coming. They're preparing for a future where the US dollar will no longer be the dominant reserve currency. And here's what nobody's saying outright. This shift is already in motion, and gold's price jump is just the beginning. But notice what's missing in all of this? Silver. While gold's hitting record highs, silver is being, well, suppressed. Why is that? So why is silver being held back while gold continues to rise? It's a question that doesn't have an easy answer, but here's the kicker. The manipulation of silver is far from accidental. We saw it happen on December 29th when silver hit nearly $84 an ounce, only to crash 10% after the CME raised margin requirements. Retail investors and smaller traders were forced to liquidate. It wasn't a random market fluctuation. It was engineered, using the same playbook that was used in the 80s and 2011. But here's the real question. Why suppress silver when gold is allowed to run wild? The answer lies in who holds each metal. Gold is largely in the hands of central banks and wealthy institutions. As gold rises, it benefits them, strengthening their reserves. Silver, however, is mostly held by regular people, the retail investor. If silver were allowed to go parabolic, it would send a clear signal to the masses that the currency system is broken. And that's something the powers that be just can't afford. Now, here's where things get even more unsettling. While silver is being suppressed, the physical market tells a very different story. In places like Asia, buyers are paying $35 more than the paper price for silver. The paper market says silver is crashing, but the physical market says something entirely different. There's a desperate scramble for silver. So what does that mean for you? It means there's a massive disconnect between what the financial world is telling you and what's actually happening in the real world. But it gets worse. We're not just seeing price manipulation, we're seeing a systemic shift. The US dollar's share of global reserves has dropped from 65% in 2008 to just 58% today. That's a 7% drop, a massive loss in just over a decade. Countries around the world are diversifying away from the US dollar, and it doesn't stop there. Nations like Germany, Turkey, and Poland are repatriating their gold reserves from the US and the UK. The message here is clear. If you want to hold real value, you better take control of your assets before it's too late. But here's where it all starts to spiral out of control. In just the last few years, we've seen a rapid acceleration in global trade deals that bypass the dollar entirely. China and Russia are trading oil in their local currencies, not the dollar. India is doing the same thing. Even Saudi Arabia is considering accepting Chinese yuan for oil purchases instead of the US dollar. This isn't just a minor shift, it's a direct attack on the dollar's dominance. And it's not just trade deals. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are building their own payment system to replace SWIFT, which the U.S. controls. That means if you're not aligned with the U.S., you could be cut off from the global financial system in a heartbeat. Countries are already using these new systems for billions of dollars in transactions. This is not a distant possibility. It's happening now, and it signals the beginning of the end for the petrodollar system that has propped up the U.S. dollar for over 50 years. Now let's talk about what all of this means for you. And you might be thinking, this sounds like a big issue for countries and banks, but how does this affect my daily life? The truth is, it affects you more than you think. The dollar losing its global dominance means inflation will likely skyrocket. Your savings, your pension, and your investments tied to the dollar will be at risk. Things that used to cost you $1 could soon cost you $5 or more. And for regular people like you and me, it'll feel like the financial floor is shifting beneath our feet. If this feels familiar, say so in the comments, because we're already seeing inflation creeping up, wages stagnating, and purchasing power shrinking. The people who are unprepared will be the ones left behind. So the question is, are you going to sit back and hope it doesn't affect you, or are you going to take action before it's too late? But before you panic, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. The forces driving this shift aren't random. They're built into the system itself. The rise of gold, the decline of the dollar, the manipulation of silver, all of these are tied to one central truth. The global financial system is rigged, and it's rigged in such a way that the few benefit while the many are left in the dark. The driving force behind this shift is leverage. Central banks and financial institutions have the power to manipulate markets, control currency flow, and create massive distortions. But it's not just about wealth concentration. It's about control. The reason why gold is being pushed to the forefront is simple. It's a neutral asset. Unlike currencies, gold isn't subject to the whims of a single nation or government. In a world where trust is eroding, gold is becoming the bedrock of stability. And that's why central banks are scrambling to hold more of it, because it's the only asset that can survive the coming storm. Now, here's where it gets tricky. We're at a crossroads, and two paths are beginning to form. On one hand, we could see the U.S. dollar fight to maintain its position with a few last-ditch efforts to reinforce its dominance, think more inflation, more money printing, and greater dependence on the petrodollar system. But on the other hand, the momentum we're seeing with gold, the rise of the BRICS currency, and the shift in global trade could signal the final nail in the dollar's coffin. So what does that mean for you? Well, the future is incredibly uncertain. There's no guarantee that one path will be chosen over the other. But what's clear is that the next move is already being prepared. In fact, it's already in motion. The question now is whether you'll act before the tipping point arrives, or whether you'll be caught off guard as the world shifts beneath you. Here's the bottom line. The world is changing, and this currency reset isn't a prediction. It's a process that's happening right now. You've seen the signs: gold's rise, the decline of the dollar, silver manipulation, and the BRICS currency coming in 2026. These aren't isolated events. They're pieces of a much larger puzzle. And the real question is, what will you do with this information? Will you ignore it and risk being left behind? Or will you take action and position yourself for what's coming? The reset is already happening, but the biggest moves are still to come. And when they do, you'll want to be ahead of the curve. So if you want to stay informed and stay prepared, make sure to follow for more insights. We'll be watching this story unfold together, and you won't want to miss what comes next.